what he actually has to do. He's doing what he's trained, right? He's not what he has to do. Matlab, you can't ask him to put rangoli when you've asked him to do a packing job, right? I've given him packing job. So, there were many comments they were asking me, like, I've asked him just to remove the sticker from the floor. I said, sorry, that is not what I've trained him for. I've trained him to do the packing of a product, not to do that, right?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the episode 21, the Leader Speak podcast. Today, we have very special guest because this is something unique for me. I have a different kind of experience doing podcast today. She's Meryl. She's into L&D department. Today, we talk about more in learning and development. She started her career. She has more than 1 decade of experience. She started her career in L&D because she loved teaching. And she built very strong career in L&D. She helped a lot of talented people. She helped other people to grow in L&D department. And she has more than 1 decade experience. Now she is a head of South Zone, one of the e-commerce platform for warehouse. And let's dive in, discuss further. Hey Meryl, how are you?
I'm good, pretty much. Little excited on the seat right now.
Love it.
So, yes.
Welcome to the podcast, The Leader Speak. How are you? How was the day?
The day was pretty great. Traveling and going around and meeting, connecting with people, and finally here at this podcast.
great.
So,
That's
thank
it.
you.
Let's begin with your journey. Like, where you born? What is your education? Could you explain?
Okay, so coming down to my basic, my family history, I'm a Bangalorean, but a totally hardcore Bangalorean, yeah.
Yeah.
Born and brought up here, have the total culture of Bangalore. And so I did my schooling somewhere near my place, and then studied in St. Charles. And 5 years, solid 5 years in Mount Carmel College.
Oh.
Yeah, vibing of Mount Carmel, yeah. And then I did my master's in Mangalore,
Okay.
in Roshni Nilaya.
Acha, okay.
Yeah, and then is where I started out my career of work, and then I'm here today
That's
as I grew up. So yes.
superb, superb. You were in HR, like basically after doing your colleges, you joined any. You started with the career with HR. What made you to choose HR? Like,
So if I have to go back to my studying bit, okay. So when I was studying in college, there was only 3 options: either finance, accounts, or marketing, or HR. With the 4 options that were there. I am not very good in numbers, which I don't enjoy numbers at all. So accounts and finance was already out of the list. So marketing was left, but marketing was never a choice as a specialization.
okay.
And I was left with HR. So I thought, why not go and explore HR? And that's where I started. I just opted for HR there in my degree. And then as years passed by, I thought, why not do masters in HR? Because everyone was doing my masters in MS in different lines of masters, So then I thought, why not do masters in HR? And I did it. And then I started getting into job opportunities into HR. And I was not enjoying HR as a whole thing, Like I said, compensation has got numbers which I don't enjoy.
Okay.
And then so that is where my HR journey started.
Okay.
But I love teaching. Teaching is also very good.
Acha.
And then I said, I don't want to do B.Ed. So then I said, there was an opening of an HR as a trainer. And that was into HR line itself. And that is where I started off and kick-started off my journey as a trainer. So,
Okay.
yes.
When you did master in HR,
Yes.
you done any specialist in HR again in college or no?
No.
Overall HR only.
It was just an overall HR
Acha,
that we
HR.
had.
But you opted for training in organization, right?
Yes.
HR.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But we know that there are multiple of responsibility when it comes to HR.
Yes.
And training, or what we call is learning and development. L&T is one of the core area in HR, if you ask me personally, right?
Yes.
You choose as a L&D, right?
Yes.
How you started career, like in L&D? I know HR you started long back, but as you mentioned that you're good in teaching, right? and that's what you opted for L&D.
Yes.
What is the initial challenges you face as a L&D like? Because I know it's your first time to teach. What are the challenges you face in initial stages in L&D?
So the picture in my head when you spoke about L&D, because what's the first picture you see a teacher teaching a student, and they say, just what, puck, 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 you have to talk. But it's not as simple as that. It's not that at all. It's not as simple as we think that teaching and training are two different things altogether. Okay, so when I came into training as a full-fledged trainer, the different areas that I started learning. So I started exploring out a lot of things. When I started training the first time, I just saw that your audience are not listening to you completely. Okay, so they're not interested in the concept that I'm training, and you're training the same old thing every day, and you start getting bored yourself also. And I just realized that your audience are not interested in what you're teaching. So then it put me in a position to think more what I can do better.
Okay.
And so when I started studying about what is there in training. I started studying about how to make your training sessions better. And then I realized that there are different modules that you need to use when you're doing training. Okay, it's not only talking. You can use games, you can use videos, you can use realistic practical examples you can use. And so there were different other techniques as well. And so this is all when I studied background, knowing how to do the training better. There is when I came to know about this. So then I said, why not let me make a movie of my own, related to what I was teaching. So when I was teaching at that time, I was teaching a process, okay, how to do things, how you should work, basically a working process of what I was teaching. So I started making that into a movie. I started doing it. There also I realized that when you make it a movie, is everyone interested in watching it? Very few were, okay. And then I started using the technique of storytelling. I think it's a very demanding technique right now. So I started using stories. I started relating it to their real life. I started speaking to the practical part of it. And then what I realized is where you need to use different techniques because your audience did not have the same level of understanding. So that was my initial challenge, which I started learning how to overcome it through different techniques I started applying.
Basically, the audience may not be 100% people going to listen what you're going to talk about. There is a challenge is what you face teach it, right?
Yes, that is one.
Okay.
Second thing is they don't have the grasping power. Everyone doesn't have the same equal grasping power. Everyone understands it and learns it in different ways.
way. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. So those were my initial challenges. There was another major challenges where the audience are not very participative. When you ask a question, they don't answer you, right? Or they don't give you any response. That time it becomes very challenging on being a trainer. How do I want him to learn, or how do I know how much he has understood? Sometimes there was language barrier. We have people from all over India, like from especially Northeast. So I do not know Orissa, but I don't know all the different languages. So I should do it in Hindi only. And then gradually I started learning a little of Malayalam, a little of Telugu, a little of Tamil. I started learning these languages so that I can make my audience understand what they are learning.
Oh, that's great.
So yes, that was...
These are the challenges. Like basically you listed out the first of all that all people not listening. That actually that is one of the challenges when you face initially give the training. The second is all people may not be grasping like what you're going to communicate with them.
Yes.
Maybe each person have a different kind of understanding. That's what you face. And third one is no participant from the audience. That will be very difficult for you to give up the energy, right?
Yes.
That's what I understand. And fourth one is language barrier. Out of 4, according to you, which is a major challenge for you?
Language barrier.
Is it?
Yes. Because I think if you know, for example, just giving you a simple example, when I meet a friend of my own place or my own mother tongue, that vibe that comes up, that is a lot of connection, the bond that builds up is really huge, right? So what happens is when I'm not able to communicate to you my message in the language that you understand, it's going to be challenging. Other things can maybe be handled out, but language, I am not going to be able to study all every space's language very fast. Like we had people from Kolkata who used to come down for my training sessions, and I didn't know Bengali. I used to speak in Hindi, but those people do not really understand Hindi very much, or if they understand, they're not able to respond back. So there used to be my challenge. But then I slowly started trying to explain it to them a little more slowly. So I started explaining to them a little more slowly, started using them a little bit of pictorials, a little bit of maybe actions, a little bit of videos. And then I started trying to teach it. I mean, that was my technique of overcoming this challenge in a very smaller way.
Okay, great. He got it. And as you mentioned, a couple of things is you adapted initially, like games or video and practical examples. For example, let's say when you talk about games, what kind of games you want to started with? Because as you mentioned, there's a language barrier.
Yeah.
Okay, and you told you start doing like videos.
Yes.
Apart from video, like games. When you talk about games, what kind of games you started?
So, so if I were to bring it down, I was training in a warehouse. So when you say warehouse, the best relevant game which I thought was passing the parcel, because the product that you order gets into different places, right? And finally it gets delivered to the last person, which is the customer. So passing the parcel was one of the techniques which I used, and I used to stop it at every person or every pillar and then tell why and what is the action that is done there, why it goes there, how is it treated, how is it processed. That's what I use the technique. That was one of the game that I used.
Yeah, apart from that one, anything else you
There
have?
were many other games that we have. We had a quick pick chit, So that was another game which I used. Then you have plenty of chits over there. You
Acha.
pick it up. That was one other game. That was one of the game. We had role play dramas also, which we did.
Is it? You
Yes.
could play in that warehouse?
Yes, in the training room, we had a room dedicated to us. So there was all these techniques that were used, and there were multiple other games which I would discover at the spot, like spot games which I would have.
How many people in the room?
We had differences. There were days which I have trained 100 people.
Okay.
There are days which I've trained 9 people. So there are days which I've trained 500 people altogether from different departments. So number was never a problem for me. So I had to accordingly decide how to.
To decide games based on the number of people available in the room, or this game will be everyone saying like?
Again, one is number, because I need that much space to have the game organized.
Very important for me to understand. Like, as you mentioned, there is a 9 people or 200, 100 people or 500 people. The game will be you curate based on the number of audience available in the room, or is it?
Yes. One is number of audience,
Okay.
but the main thing would be how participative are the audience.
Okay.
See, because for me, number of audience also, all 100 also, I can engage them in some game by make them into small groups. But how participative were the audience? That was very much important for me to know if I could have a game organized. Because there were days which I was seeing the participation is really zero. Okay. At that point of time, I use movie as a technique which I would use for training. I would not use game at that point of time.
That's what kind of movie you talking about?
So I have taken a video of the entire process of the warehouse. What happens, how are the steps it is done, everything. So I created a whole curated movie of the entire process of where I was working.
As a movie in the sense is like only system and process you're talking about, or in characters will be there?
Characters would be there. The person who's doing the process
Acha.
would be the character, and I would record the session, and I would even be giving out a voice recording where I would be speaking. I was not a very expert at that point in time because I was very initially just come out of college, just trying out this technique. So I was not very well versed in it and a very high class bit, but there was a little way that I had tried to improve out on my training technique.
No, that's really good because you share a lot of things, because these are very important, because when you, especially all my episode are only related to HR. Now something I'm learning here about the L&D, like learning and development. And this is going to help a lot of people who want to start their career in L&D. Okay.
Lovely.
And you mentioned a couple of things, right? That definitely they're going to help them also to understand how it is going to work. If I want to ask you, let's say when you started your career in the L&D, then these are challenges you face. Can you elaborate, can you give some example how this impacted in organization? Like, do you have any examples, do you have any case studies on that? Okay, I did like something like that that's really impacted on my organization or really impacted on my department.
Okay, so the initial
Can you elaborate,
days,
yeah.
So the initial days when I just joined the company, which I would not want to disclose, but
I know that.
initially when I just joined the company, and I think the training team was still getting formed, still getting into
The particular
a
organization,
shape.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
It was still getting structured. It was still getting formed. It was still getting to be known. And everyone's first reaction is, what have you trained these people? They do not know anything. What have you trained? Your training is just so simple. It's just 1 hour. What you want, just teach and then you come back. That's all, right? So that was a mindset what the people had in the process when they was working in the warehouse. And they were actually wrong. It is not as simple as people think. Okay. We think teachers are so simple, they just come and just start talking about the topic. But it's not so simple. You need to do a lot of study of the topic. You need to prepare yourself how to tackle on the audience that you're having. Okay. All the audience are not going to be listening to you. You will have troublesome people in between as well. So, like there was once an incident that happened. There were some two people were just fighting out. And then I had to separate them out, like out in between.
Training.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are different issues of such also that occurs, right? So that was what happened. So people have a very wrong notion that training is so simple, but that's not the truth. Okay. So there's so much behind it. There's so many things to be done. So what happened is in the organization when I came in the beginning, I just joined into this line and I did not know about it much myself. I was discovering it myself. So when they started talking about this, right, they started demotivating me. I was like, and then one fine day, I put down my foot and I said, no, I should not get demotivated by these unworth comments. They're not worth it. They're just useless comments, I would say that. And then gradually what happened is where I started building up. I started working on the audience. I used to only get 1 hour of time. Sorry, 1 hour also is too much. I had 45 minutes to train them about the entire department process, which is not easy. Okay. Then I started working on my technique of how I should train them. Okay. And then I slowly started improving. And they were slowly, when I started giving out the people who I've trained, when I handed over the people who I trained to the floor to work, whenever they used to pass me this comment, like telling, what have you trained? These people do not know. I told them, wait, ask the boys any question. And if they don't answer, then you pass this comment. And then as well, they questioned then. I said, okay. He said, okay, I'll question them. He questioned and all of them answered the question that he asked. And this was not only once, there was 5-6 times that this incident happened that I made them question the people on the process that they're going to be working on, and all my audience and all my participants answered it. So that made me a small little achievement which I did for myself, which I said I changed the mindset of the people, what they think about the audience or about the workers who are coming there to work. I changed the thinking of the people in the organization.
Basically, you're going to train for the new employee in the organization, right?
Yes.
When you train them, we talk about department wise. Okay, let's say, what are the department you're going to learn apart from HR? Like, are you going to be ops department or finance or like, let's say, admin or marketing or sales or warehouse, logistics? There are multiple departments in organization.
Yes.
You going to teach them, or like you going to give the learning and develop for all the department wise, or how is it? Like only you talk about culture of the organization or the process and system of the organization. What exactly you going to teach?
So, since I was working in the warehouse, I was only training the process in the warehouse.
Okay.
The finance, all that was in the corporate, and they didn't need training.
Okay.
Sorry. So what happened is I trained them in the process that is there in the warehouse.
Warehouse, basically.
We have different departments. We have inbound, inventory, outbound, returns. So I just trained them for that department process is what I would say. So that was a training which I used to give these people.
More into warehouse.
Very hardcore, very depth into the department that they're working in. So that was what I was training them for.
And it will be very difficult for, basically we call it as a blue collar employee, right?
Yes, exactly.
And you need to match their kind of mindset. It's not easy, like.
Yes. So I think there was a phase of time. There was a phase where my manager had left the organization, and I was still getting a new manager, and I was all alone handling the complete warehouse. I think for a phase of about 2.5 months.
Okay.
I alone solely give all the department trainings. I did it myself. There were days like I've trained 800 people altogether. I should do it by myself, hand over them by myself, give them refresher trainings by myself. So I've done everything by myself. Where I had then slowly decided they had 2 more people to help me out. Then slowly that grew up. But there was a phase where I did everything by myself. And that was the best time because there I learned a lot of how to handle these people. So that was a very great study time, I would say, at that point of time. So yes, it was a beautiful journey at that phase.
This is when you join initial stages, right?
Yes, not
Correct.
initially, but after my first manager left, then.
Okay.
So yes, that was a lovely journey period.
The audience, if you're not able to participate or they're not able to interact with you, how do you manage this?
So
Are you able to keep them engaged of the interaction or to keep up the participation alive?
Okay, so that's a very good question when you ask because for a training session, interaction is very, very, very important. But how do I bring it up? So the first thing is, so let me tell you about what I used to do in my training sessions. What I used to do is I used to take a little bit, I used to start on one topic, normal explanation of normal talking. Okay, I should normally explain. And then I study the situation for some time. I see how are the audience responding to what I'm talking. And
A topic in the sense you're talking about general topic or related to the subject or
related to the department.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Only-
Because in those audience when I'm teaching, there are some who have already worked and they're again rejoining. Okay. So that case, what will happen? That fellow already knows about the topic. He's going to back out. Okay. He's not going to respond at that point of time. So that is going to be the first go, right?
Correct.
So, but the others, there are new people also. So then what I will do is I will study the situation. I will study how they understand, how they are really, what they know, what is their knowledge about the process, or do they know anything, or they really do not know anything. I first study that. Then it's slowly where I start seeing the other techniques which I start using. For example, I have to give you, once there was a very young batch of some college boys, okay? And for boys, football, I think nowadays everyone knows that football is the on-go sports. Any boy sports
favorite
football. Oh, you also love football, okay? So you are also one, like I think. So all boys football is the first thing. They have fractured their leg also, they still go and play football. So they don't care about that. So then what happened is I thought, let me make this. So what I did is I started first talking. And I realized that these people are zoning out. They're not really interested in the session. Then is where I use the technique of playing a game. And when I just said game, they were so excited. And then I was like, so then I put forward a question, what game do you want to play? And then they're like, ma'am, let's play football. I said, how will you play football in a warehouse? And so then, I started building up a little bit of bond. And then I started playing a game because then I realized that they are very interested in that topic. And then they're showing out that the participation spirit started coming out. So that is something which I worked on, that's how I bought out, or that's how I studied my audience to know if they're really going to, which technique is going to work for them to interact. There have been times that I have even not given the right method at times. Like, for example, there was once a session of very elderly people, okay? They were mixed, elderly and young people. Now, I can't make everyone play a game because the elderly people are not going to play the game because they're already not going to be in the situation of even standing out to play a game or run about. So over there, what I did is I had storytelling as a technique. And in that game, I had 2 methods clubbed up. One is storytelling and one is role play. So I made all the young people to do a role play and I had to build up a story in it as well. So I have to study the one is the vibe of how the people audience are. And the second is how much are they participating. There was another time that these people, like I said, right, one of the challenges is language barrier. In that point of time, interaction is very, very low, okay? Because they might understand what you're saying, but they are not ready to respond. So that at that point of time, I individually go to these one, but out of the 10, there might be 2 who are not interacting, or there might be two who are not responding. So then I go down to those people and I speak to them in a language that they understand, or I put someone next to them to translate so that I know that they understand me and I understand them. So that is something which I try to do. There are a few incidents that I've shared out with how I make a session more interactive or participate.
Let's say 40% of the audience and out of 100, 40% like the football. Okay.
Boys.
Okay, example. Okay, and 60 people may not like the football. Maybe they like something like cricket or some other sports.
Yes.
Maybe some people don't like any sports. Example.
Yes.
This is very tricky for you.
Yes.
Okay, you understand. Okay, that when you talk about football, definitely the 40 people will be more engaged with you.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And other 40%, 60%, you told some story. What
Yeah.
kind of a story are you talking about? A related to sports story or something different?
So again, like I said, so when now let me come to the second part of the question that you've asked me, which story that I use. So the story which I use is again related to the process. Okay, I will create a story related to your real life. Basically, a storytelling technique which I would be using, where I would tell them a story related to your real life, how you can relate your real life process techniques to the training of or to the process of the warehouse. You know, that's the I would try to combine that, make that into a story.
Okay.
So that's how I would build up on the storytelling. On your first half of the question that you asked, right? Basically, I think your question is there are certain set of people who are interested. What about you? How will you tackle the others who are not interested?
Absolutely.
So in that situation, like I said, right, I would say storytelling. Now, what will I do with the other set of people who are not interested? Okay, so the people who are interested, I will have a game for them. The other people who are not interested to play the game, like you said, there are people who are interested in playing football, but there are people who are interested in playing cricket. So basically, they both are in a common line. They both are interested to play some game or the other, right? So I will put a game where they are interested in, but they in that also you will have 3-4 people who do not want to play anything. So those people will be the people who will observe and give me an explanation on what they saw, what did they learn, what did they understand. Now, even in that, when that person is explaining, okay, it is for me like a learning. Basically, now when I have to put that forward, how will I tell you that is, for example, A, B, and C are observing the game,
Okay.
and they are explaining to me. They don't want to be participants of the game, but what do they see is what they're going to tell me, right? So over here also is a little challenging situation. What is the challenge is that I need to put a game where these 4 people understand the actual process and in the right way. So if that person explains something wrong, for example, he said that, the product is ordered and goes directly to the customer, which is wrong. And in between there are processes that happens, and he did not explain those bits. That means then there is like a learning, like I said, it's a learning for me. I will have to then change my game in such a way that the process comes out correctly to the person who's watching it.
Yeah, got it. I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, that's My next question is like training when you keep like let's say again saying number of people are there. You have experienced people there, like maybe they work with the company from last 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and you have set up people who just a intern or fresher from the college.
Yes.
Okay, as you mentioned earlier that people know already what I'm going to teach them, and the new set up people, they don't know something. They're excited to know what is a process and system, what you're going to teach up.
Yes.
Is it that any kind of influence these existing people having like fresher on that particular training and session?
So what happens over
Maybe
here?
negative or maybe positive. You understand what I'm telling, right?
Yes. So, okay. So here also there are different cards to this game, I would say. Sometimes who have just come from college and they're very raw in their head. They do not know what happens in a warehouse. But they're logistics students. Okay. Again, coming down to what they know, they only know what is in the book. Right? But because they're not seen it practically. So they have come down to the warehouse. And they would have done their degree or even masters in logistics, and they've come down to warehouse. So we have some of the experienced people who have told them, these young people are so inquisitive that questions are more than the answers that we have, right? So they ask these people questions, what is a culture? What is a work? What is this? What? And the experienced people would obviously share out their side, saying that, you have to do this work. This is the work you have to do. This is how you have to work. There'll be more of manual work, or there might be a little system work combined with some manual work. So that's how they picture it out. So what happens is the young people, they sometimes catch on to the part of, oh, manual work. So in their head is only manual work. But that's not the truth, right? So there are so many other type of things also. So that is one way of how the experienced people would have influenced the students. So that is like a negative influence. Sometimes there are positive influences. Okay. So sometimes the person who has experience, they tell out to the younger ones to, in a very right way, saying that, what, you will learn a lot, you will improve yourself a lot, you will you will gradually grow up, you'll improve, you'll learn something new. Have you ever worked in a warehouse? You will know what is the process that happens in a warehouse. So different things they will try to motivate. So these are two type of things that has happened, and I've had both these experience. So when I had the negative one, there is where the trainer is being a lot of stones have been thrown at the trainer. Means what I'm trying to say is not literally the stones, but the questions start coming up, popping out from the students are a lot towards the trainer. So they are like, ma'am, you said we are doing this, but actually that's not the truth. We are doing something else. And then you have to sit down with those new people and explain to them how they need to work, or what is the work actually, what is the work culture actually that is happening, how they need to work, what is the work that they will be doing, what is the learning that they'll have. So you need to sit and have a one-to-one. So that is one way of, when they have a negative influence, how do you protect these kids from getting a negative thought? That is one way of, the influence, I would say. But when it's positive influence, it's a helpline for you, because the students have understood what they're doing. And I think you even had questioned me, is this influence of the experienced people going to be harming the new minds? No, they do not. When there's a negative influence, that time our work becomes a little more in putting the younger people in the right path or right way, explaining to them the right picture of the work. But if it, on the other hand, if the experienced people help us, then our work becomes a little bit lesser and becomes easier also. Yes. So yeah.
Okay, I think you've done n number of training, right?
Yes.
You have n number of training. If I want to ask you that, what is your one negative comment? If you feel that this worst in my thing happened to me, when the negative comment come, and one positive comment that you felt so good about yourself. You have remember
a lot of, a very...
one or two absolutely negative comment or positive.
The first negative comment is, like I had mentioned in my earlier experience, in the beginning when I was in the line of training,
Okay.
the first comment would say, what have you trained these people? So that is a very negative, very negative. Yes, so
manager asked you, or
the people on the floor used to always ask me, even my manager knows I'm training them, but the people on the floor, like, what have you trained them? He doesn't know anything.
Okay.
So that was one of the negative comments. The other negative comment is like, what is this? It's a very useless thing. What have you taught them? They do not know anything. He's not even doing what he's asked to do. And so that pushed me back in saying that he is doing what he actually has to do. He's doing what he's trained, right? He's not, what he has to do, matlab, you can't ask him to put rangoli when you've asked him to do a packing job, right? I've given him packing job. So, there were many comments they were asking me, like, I've asked him just to remove the sticker from the floor. I said, sorry, that is not what I've trained him for. I've trained him to do the packing of a product, not to do that, right? So those were the comments that used to come up. And then I used to tackle it in a very, in a fun-loving way, I would say, because I need to have a peaceful environment, working environment. So I used to tackle that situations out when I used to get such comments. Positive comments which I have received is from my students ever, So I've got this thank you, thank you, ma'am, for being there and guiding us in our career and helping us grow and training us. So I've got such, those are very lovely, motivating ones. I've got my colleagues, some of the colleagues who said, Meryl, great work for your hardship that you have taken, and you have given us such good batch of trainees. So yeah, so those are one of my good comments that I would have.
No, I can come back to the negative comment. Yes. That's very important, because when you started your career, if someone is given negative comment, to process them is very easy.
Yes.
And that moment, how you, that emotionally you will be definitely down, because you'll be demotivated, and emotionally you need to be controlled more, like mature wise. How do you process on those moments? Because what I understand is you are more than a decade now in L&D department, and you've done a number of training. Only the resilience what you had, you come from last 10 years and
Yes.
you build yourself. Okay.
Yes.
And that moment initially, the emotional, you know that there's a negative comment, but you know that I need to reach my goal, in particular L&D. What the emotion how you process?
So, like I said, initially I was very young. I was in the college and this come out, and so when this comments used to come out, it's just really demotivating. But who do I tell it to, And one day I just sat with my manager saying, they're always saying this comment. So my manager said, don't give a damn to it because they're just talking, because you know the trouble, they do not know your side. They only know their side that they're receiving the candidates. Do they know how out of trouble you're taking? So then that put me to a thought of like, yes, I should really not think about, because they did not know the other side. Our training room was way far away and our warehouse was far away. So they were not on the same where people could see how we are training. So only the actual picture only I knew. So that is where, and then slowly I started strengthening myself up. I said, Meryl, you can do it. You don't need to get influenced with these comments. And I slowly, like I said, these comments used to come, what have you trained these people? So first month I heard, second month I heard, third month is where I said, I put my foot down and I said, I'm done with such comments. I told him, tomorrow you're coming to the training room and you're training these people. Then we will talk. What have I trained them? Then we will talk. And this happened 2-3 times. And then is when such comments stopped coming out, because I said, you're not encouraging me, you're demotivating me, and you have no rights to pass such comments. You do mind your business and you do your work. Your work is to do the packing and process. You do your business. So I started knowing that in a workplace, you cannot sit quiet when such comments are made. You need to voice out, because if today you don't voice out, tomorrow no one is going to voice out, and that person will never learn to not to pass such comments, which is very demotivating. So that's something which I learned in my course of time. So if I not put my foot down, I think I would have not completed a decade at all in learning and development. So yes.
This is really interesting. I'm learning a lot of things from you, Meryl. That's really good. Now my question is, let's say, can you talk about challenges initially? That's more into the fresher, right?
Yes.
This is some of the couple of challenges what you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Let's say employee who have more than 3 years or 5 years working experience in the organization. What are your top 3 challenges when you're going to train these people?
So you're talking about the experience
Guy, not on the fresher, because I know fresher, you told language barrier. So those are things I understand initially, because let's say some set of people, they cross more than 3 or 5 years. Now it's come to experienced people to train them. They know almost all the kind of approach you're going to do it, the kind of talk, the kind of story you're going to do. They know almost all. Now let me know how you're going to train these people. What are the challenges, let's say, to teach experienced people top 3 challenges?
Not to for experienced people, the top 3 challenges would be they're a little resilient. They will not participate because they know the process already. Okay, so participation would again stand still there, because they would not participate or would not answer saying that, ma'am, we already know the process, why are you teaching us again? Or so there are some experienced people who would have worked in department A, but now they're taking department B training. He's experienced, but those people, what he will do? They will learn, because it's a new department for them. But they have an idea of what happens in the department, but still I'm training them again. Like for example, Mr. A has worked in inbound. Now he is going to be working in outbound department. But more or less inbound and outbound, few processes are the same.
Okay.
So he already has experience in outbound, where he understands a little bit of the process. But he is going to still learn something new. So he might participate. But if a person is going to again get back. So participation is one of the, again, challenges which would remain, yes, for experienced people as well. Another challenge would be maybe language would really not be a problem, because I've had Northeast people who have learned Kannada also. So it was a very, again, after over 1.5 years, they've worked in the place, they started responding to Kannada. Illa, gottilla. There's a few words that, 1 or 2 classic words of Kannada that we use. So that's what they started using. So they have learned that. So then language would not be a barrier with experienced people, but participation would be a very big challenge. I think there's no other challenges which I have faced with experienced people as such, Because you asked me to mention 3, but I think
No, no, it's okay. I thought maybe if you get 3, absolutely great, but no problem.
no.
A major
So
challenge.
major challenge would again be participation would be
Right. Okay, super. Acha, now next, like, are you go for hiring also like campus interview as a part of your profile? Like
Okay, so let me talk about this little
You-
portion.
you
Oh,
go for hiring also?
yes, so no, I would like to tell you a little bit of this portion of. I think every employee would relate to me what I'm saying.
Okay.
Only in your badge you're a trainer, or only your name tag or you're a trainer, but you do everything else. You do hiring, you do placements, you do certification, you go and speak to the placement officers, you get your own audience, everything you do. So
Is it?
yes, so I do
Is it
everything.
part of L&D or no, you will take extra responsibilities?
Whenever the company wants to cost cut, then yeah, this is what happens. Okay, so but I think every employee who is working would really relate to this. Like recently, just this morning, I met one of the HR and he said, "Ma'am, I'm only by name HR, but I look into the operations, I look into going and speaking to people, I look into the marketing bit, I look into everything." So I think the employing people will really relate to what I'm telling.
But you take care of hiring also. You go to campus, you go to colleges. Okay.
Yes, I do that all.
What kind of college will do? Like, do you select any top B school in Bangalore, or you go to Tier 2, Tier 3?
I go to all colleges and any colleges except government colleges recently, but I've gone to all colleges. I've gone to MBA colleges, I've gone to engineering colleges, I've gone to every college, management colleges, business B school colleges. I've gone to all colleges for internship opportunities which we offer in our company.
Acha, how do you approach these people? Like, are you participate any kind of a conference or trade show to attract more kind of these people, or you go directly to the like through reference, or you do cold calls and you go walking? How you do?
So this is again, there are 2 things to this. So sometimes if I go for any event, I do connect with people and I take their cards and I connect with them. Again, I go down to the college and speak to them. That is one. Second is our guru, that is Google. So Google will give me a list of colleges that are there around the place that I am at. So then I prefer walk-in also. So I directly go and meet the placement officers, directly walk in and meet them. So then that is where that's something which I also opt for. And some third would be maybe someone would tell me that so and so college is there which I have studied. You can go and try out there. So those are 3 different types that I try to approach colleges to go and connect to my students.
You are more than a decade experience in L&D now, right?
Yes, on your decade.
And if I want to ask you that, what was your evolution in L&D?
The evolution that happened. So so like I said, I was first, so let me bring this back to my college days when so I studied HR, So in my head, it was, I wanted to do HR. And then I did HR, and then I did my master's in HR. And then I got into HR. I was a HR also in a company also. And then I realized I'm not enjoying it. I'm really not enjoying that HR work as such. Talking to your employee. I mean, I don't mind talking to my employees, but it is just not, maybe the entire ocean is not my liking. I would only like a small bit of it. So then I realized L&D is, I enjoy teaching. And then I realized that maybe training would be my best line. And that's where I got into training. And I explored the opportunities, and whenever I got, I applied, I saw people, how trainers work. Because if I had to bring back to my history, my mom is also a trainer. So I saw how she works and she's enjoying the work. She's done MBA in marketing, but then today she's she's a trainer and she's a very good, she's got 25 years plus experience in training. And I just seen her journey, which has been so beautiful, right? And because she also likes teaching to people, right? So I also enjoy the same line. And I thought, okay, let me try out training. And there is where my evolution of training started out as a full-fledged. And today I don't like what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. So I'm just so happy and passionate that I've finally chosen what I want to do. Because even before I even knew what I wanted to do, when I was in HR, I was a little confused actually and such. I was a little confused on what to do next. Like, I'm not liking the HR bit. What do I do next? How do I go about it? What do I have to take up? Then I realized that HR has different specializations. There's counseling, there is compensation, there is hiring, there are a lot of these lines. Then I started sitting down and analyzing each area of HR. Do I like it? Will I be comfortable? Will I enjoy that part? And then is where I came down to a conclusion saying that I enjoy teaching, I enjoy interacting, and I think communication is one of my strengths. And why not take up training as the line? And that's how I started off with the LLD section.
But as even the L&D, what you are learning, like you need to upskill a lot, right?
Yes.
And it's very important because you need to upskill yourself. You need to be updated yourself. What is happening in present trend? What are the things you do for yourself?
So I've recently joined a course where I'm doing my L&D, I'm doing my master's into L&D.
Okay.
And I realized that there are so many terms, there's so many concepts. So when I joined training, I was a fresher, total fresher in training line, because I had no knowledge about anything of what training was actually speaking. Okay. But then I used to just see videos and how to make a session interesting. Is what I just used to see YouTube videos. But there is much more than only what you see on the screen. There's so many, like there's ADDIE model. There are so many other models that I used, right? So all that is what I actually started getting to know now when I'm doing my master's out. So so when you ask me how I upskill myself, right? So in the beginning, I just thought it is just simple, just talking and teaching. It's not only that. I realized that later, okay? There is so much to it. There's so much more. There are different techniques of how we train. Like I said, right, I used to make movies and games. I wasn't very expert in those things, but I just thought, let me try out. And then I started slowly discovering that there's so much more. I used to watch YouTube on how things used to happen. And I really discovered that I want to do my master's also in training. And then now is where I'm doing my master's also in training. I'm doing another certification course also in training. So there are multiple things that I'm discovering right now. Because one is I got into the master course that I said. So I'm learning that I'm in different modules. Like one of the module is ADDIE module that we use, right, for training. ADDIE module. Yes, you analyze, you determine, you define. So a lot of other things that you define you design what the module has to be done, how it has to be done, what is the content that you need to give out to the audience who you're training. You need to know what type of audience are you attending to, what is their learning on level. There's so much of studying that is done. So so much of research and analyzing that is done before we just put forward any program or any training session that we give out. So there's a lot to it. So I think my learning journey is every day, which I'm doing. So I go to YouTube or I check out videos, I talk to people, and like I go to many of the summits and conferences where I meet a lot of L&D people.
Wow.
I speak to them, how do they tackle out some situations. And my current role model is my mom. Like I said, she is into training. She's been getting 25 plus years of training. And I sometimes do ask her, like, Mom, how do I tackle this situation that I'm having? And then she sits with me and she tells me how I can tackle that situation.
There's no role play with mom.
Yes. I think I have a one-on-one with my mom. So, yes.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, now what I believe is when you start teaching people,
Yes.
you're going to learn a lot of things from opposite person, right?
Yes.
And if you want to highlight any one of the skills you learned from last decade,
Yes.
when you start teaching to the people,
Yes.
tell me that any one skill that this is what I'll learn from teaching with the people.
So, when I teach the people, especially the Gen Z people, the Gen Z people are too very fast, right? They're so much. They're a whole question bank in themselves, right? So the Gen Z people are a lot of fun. You learn a lot of things, especially the language which you don't understand. Absolutely, it just goes above your head. So what was my learning is to understand them, to study them, because you need to study them. I'll give you another small little example that happened with me. So we went for a panel discussion. There was one little student who comes up to me and telling that, ma'am, is the working environment going to be toxic? And one of the person asked, what's the meaning of toxic? And then she replied saying that, ma'am, if the manager does not listen to you, it is toxic. And so what is in their head is something which is really, in a nutshell, they do not know exactly what is toxic. And when she said that, when a manager does not listen to you, it is toxic. Then I was in my head like that's the situation every day that we go through. So, so especially understanding these students, studying from them was one of my learnings which I had with my audience, where understanding their thought process was the thing that I learned from the current audience thing. Yes.
Do you remember any on memorable success story in your life, like in L&D?
Yes. So one day, like I said, that I've been training 500 people a day, 1,000 people. So in a month, I would have trained about 2,000 people altogether. And you obviously can't remember everyone's face. I can't remember anyone's face, not even everyone, not even anyone's face. So I was just walking. I was in a hurry because I had to go for a training session. I also was walking towards my training room. And a lady just walked to me and she said, "Thank you, ma'am, for training me," and all that. And I said, "Sorry, ma, I don't even remember you." She said, "Ma'am, it's okay if you don't remember me, but I do remember you, ma'am. You're the one who taught me how to have the process." And so that was a very memorable moment that I had. Something which I will never forget, like, yes. So, yeah. And even like I said, there was one student also who sent me a message saying, "Ma'am, you have changed my life so much and my thought process. You've been like a guard for us. You've guided us. You've been a guardian to guide us in a route of career." So those are a few memorable, those messages, like I said, no, they are like a big achievement. So yes, those are the most memorable moments I will never want to forget.
Superb. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, my next question will be the most valuable lesson you learn from your L&D.
Okay, so this took me some time to discover also myself. Like I said, I was a fresher, I didn't know. I realized that everyone's learning is not the same. Everyone has different levels of learning. Like I said, right? I had to use different techniques. I used role play and a movie together, maybe a storytelling and practical life experiences together, right? I realized that everyone does not have the same level of understanding. Okay, it is different for different people. Maybe some may learn very fast, some might take some time to understand. So that is something that is one of my way big learning that I learned from my learning experience. The second thing is a little of sometimes we say, right, psychology, child psychology or psychology also. So that is something which I learned. So this was something which was a big takeaway from my L&D learning career that I had, which I learned as an individual. And I even learned that you should be very innovative in your training. You should not use the same technique every day. Everyone is going to be boring. One is going to be boring for myself because I'm being a trainer. Second is going to be boring for the people who are even on the other side as well. So these are the two things which I learned in my journey.
If you want to give 3 pro tips for upcoming L&D profession,
okay,
what are your pro tips?
The first main tip is love what you're doing. Love your job, what you're doing. Because only when you love it, you're going to give your complete dedication to the job that you're doing. That's my first pro tip. Second is explore. Take risks. Explore different things that you think that you need to do at that point of time. Like I took up a step. I put my foot down and I took up a step saying that, you should not don't look down at training. Like I said, right? People are telling me why
you comments,
yes,
and pulling you down.
Yes. So you should learn how to overcome that one. Second is I did my own movie. You cannot take out videos and all in the warehouse, but I asked permission and I did it. And I told them the reason. I was very genuine and telling that I'm using it for training. So I took a risk of taking out videos, which is not allowed in the warehouse, but I took a risk and I did it. So that is something which I feel you should explore innovative ideas, innovative techniques or platform which you can use for your training so that it is both win-win situation where you also are interested in your own training session and the audience who are listening to you are also interested. That's another second thing that I would say. And the third thing I would say is that whenever anyone does any mistake, let them do the mistake so that they will learn from it. Right? So in case even you do a mistake, it's okay. You learn from your own mistake. Like a simple example, there was once a fellow who was there. He's an experienced person. And I asked him to tell me the entire process because he knew it. He was there for quite a lot of time. He was there for about 2 years and then he took a break. I went back home and then he came back again to join in. So he knows about the warehouse quite a bit. And I asked him to tell me the process. And he actually forgot a little bit because he had a gap in between, right? He had gone back home, so he had a gap in between, and he went a little incorrect on the process. And I think I let him do the mistake, and then before you point hands out over him, let him do the mistake. And then I sat down with him and I explained to him, you were a little wrong, but this is how the process goes. And he felt good and he remembered and he says, thank you, ma'am, for correcting me and teaching me the actual process. So I think you should allow people to do mistakes, yes, so that they will learn from that. These are the three things.
That's very important. Yeah. Thank you so much, Merit. Like, it's been great have a conversation with you because this is something unique for me because I as I mentioned earlier that I done a lot of it's been more than 20 episodes and we focus more on HR other related, but here full episode dedicated for only L&D. And thank you so much for sharing your experiences and giving practical examples. I'll learn a lot of things. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. And I would also like to thank you to give me this opportunity to explore my interests. Thank you so much.
Meryl, thank you so much for coming. It's our sustainable brand called Rafter. This gift for you.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to have
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
From this episode, I have a 3 takeaway. The number 1 is love yourself. As she mentioned, you need to love yourself before doing anything else. As she pursue her career in the L&D department, because she loved training people. That's what you need to love yourself to pursue any career. The second one is process the negative comment and move forward. As she mentioned in the episode, when she started her career, there is a lot of negative comments from the audience because she is new to this L&D and people are start talking about back and they giving negative comments. But still, she didn't demotivate herself. She understand and she start working on that and she start moving forward. The resilience only what she built. And third one is innovation. In the episode, she mentioned a lot of times that she added a lot of games, a lot of storytelling, movies. This kind of innovation you have to do in your career or in your department to make you stand out. These are my 3 takeaways from this episode. If you like this episode, please do subscribe and share with your professional friends. See you in the next episode.